Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today as we dive into the certificate in Pedagogy Foundations. In this session, we'll be focusing on inclusive and differentiated instruction, which is Module 7 of our program. Over the course of this presentation, we'll explore key concepts and strategies to help you create more inclusive and effective learning environments. So, let's get started and see how we can enhance our teaching practices together. Let's talk about fostering a sense of belonging, which is so crucial in creating inclusive education environments. When students feel like they truly belong, they are more engaged, motivated, and ready to learn. To do that, we need to focus on removing systemic barriers that might stand in the way of their success. These barriers can be anything from policies to physical barriers or even social stigmas. Next, we want to provide tailored supports that meet each student's individual needs. One-size-fits-all solutions simply don't work when it comes to inclusive education. Every student has unique strengths and challenges, so our environment must adapt to support them all effectively. This approach is about moving beyond a uniform model to create spaces where every student can thrive. Whether that means adjusting teaching methods, providing additional resources, or fostering a culture of understanding and respect. And this ties directly into the core idea of equity over equality. Equity means giving each student what they need to succeed, rather than giving everyone the same thing. So, as we introduce inclusive education, the goal is to build environments that recognize and celebrate diversity, ensuring that every learner feels valued and supported to reach their full potential. Let's talk about the concept of expert learners and equity. When we think about compliance and averages, we're often focusing on meeting minimum standards or looking at how the majority performs. But the goal here is to move beyond that. We want to create environments that are flexible and responsive so they can adapt to the diverse needs of all learners. Instead of a fixed, one-size-fits-all approach, we aim for environments that are proactive in their design. This means planning from the start with accessibility and inclusivity in mind, rather than retrofitting solutions later for individuals. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is central to this approach. It's about designing flexible curricula from the beginning, ensuring that learning is accessible to everyone. This contrasts with the traditional approach, which often relies on a fixed concept, standardized content that expects all students to fit a specific mold. The foundations of UDL are based on the idea that we can create learning environments that are both inclusive and effective by considering variability as a fundamental principle. So, in essence, we're shifting from reactive, one-size-fits-all strategies to proactive, intentional planning that supports all learners from the outset. Let's talk about what really drives engagement in learning. First up is student voice. When students have a say in what they're learning, it immediately makes the experience more meaningful. Agency is also crucial. Giving students the opportunity to make choices and take ownership of their learning keeps them motivated and invested. Connecting learning to real-world links helps students see the relevance of what they're studying. When they understand how knowledge applies outside the classroom, their interest naturally increases. Relevance is key. If the topics matter to them personally or professionally, they're more likely to stay engaged. Topics and formats matter too. Offering a variety of subjects and ways to explore them keeps things fresh and prevents boredom. And giving students choices in how they learn or demonstrate understanding can be incredibly motivating. When students have a say, they become active participants rather than passive receivers. All of this ties into the overarching idea that motivation and sustained interest come from providing choice, relevance, and student agency. When students feel that their voices matter, that what they're learning connects to real life, and that they have some control over their learning process, engagement naturally follows. This is the core of the why of learning, understanding what makes students want to learn and stay committed. It's not just about delivering content, but creating an environment where they feel valued, relevant, and empowered. That's what Principle 1, engagement, is all about. Let's talk about some effective ways to enhance understanding through visual and auditory tools. First, graphic organizers are fantastic for structuring information clearly, making complex ideas easier to grasp. Next, text-to-speech tools can help bring content to life, especially for auditory learners or those with reading difficulties. Audio and video content add engagement and context, making lessons more dynamic and memorable. Visual aids and diagrams serve as quick reference points, helping to illustrate concepts visually. These tools all align with the what of representation, emphasizing the importance of presenting information in diverse and accessible ways. By incorporating these strategies, we ensure our content resonates with different learning styles and reinforces the overall message of effective communication. Let's take a closer look at UDL Principle 3, Action and Expression. This principle emphasizes that assessments should focus on a student's knowledge and critical thinking skills. It's important to remember that assessments are meant to gauge what students understand and how they can apply that understanding, not just how well they can perform motor tasks or navigate language barriers. This means designing assessments that allow students to demonstrate their learning in various ways, especially if they have different needs. For example, instead of just written tests, we might include oral presentations, visual projects, or digital portfolios. By aligning assessments with this principle, we're ensuring that we're accurately measuring students' understanding, rather than their ability to overcome physical or language challenges. This approach helps create a more equitable learning environment, where all students have the opportunity to showcase their true capabilities. Connecting this to the overall theme, it reminds us that universal design for learning is about removing barriers and providing multiple means of expression. When assessments are thoughtfully designed, they become powerful tools for true learning and growth. Now, let's look at how mastery can be demonstrated through different expressive methods. Students might showcase their understanding through monologues, which allow them to really embody a character or idea. They could also retell stories or concepts via social media, which encourages creativity and relevance. Alternatively, they might write comparative essays that analyze different perspectives or themes. When it comes to representation, content can be delivered through live performances, giving students the chance to physically embody their work. Audiobooks are another great way to engage auditory learners, making the content accessible in a different format. Annotated visual texts also help deepen understanding by combining imagery with detailed notes, making the material more engaging and easier to interpret. Engagement-wise, students are given the flexibility to choose themes that resonate with them, like love versus conflict, which makes their learning more meaningful. They can also work in different group sizes, whether that's pairs, small groups, or larger teams, depending on what best supports their collaboration and learning style. All of these strategies tie back into universal design for learning principles, ensuring we provide multiple means of expression, representation, and engagement. This approach helps us meet diverse student needs, making learning more inclusive and effective for everyone. Let's talk about specialist collaboration and how it plays a crucial role in supporting diverse learners. When we work together with specialists, we can better address each student's individual needs. Co-teaching is a great example of this. It allows two educators to plan and deliver instruction together, providing more targeted support within the classroom. Embedded supports are also essential. They're strategies and resources integrated directly into the learning environment to help students succeed without feeling singled out. Scaffolds are another key concept. These are the temporary supports we provide to help students move toward independence, gradually removing them as students gain confidence and skills. Recognizing that students have varying readiness levels is fundamental. Some may need more intensive support, while others are ready to take on more challenge. That's why tiered tasks are so effective. They offer different levels of complexity within the same activity, allowing us to meet students where they are. Now, a big question we often ask ourselves is, how do we address neurodiversity and language differences? The answer lies in creating flexible, inclusive strategies that recognize and celebrate these differences rather than trying to fit everyone into a one-size-fits-all approach. When we focus on diverse learners, We're not just accommodating, they're central to our planning. We adapt our methods, materials, and supports to ensure every student has access to meaningful learning experiences. Ultimately, our goal is to foster an environment where all learners feel valued, supported, and capable of success. Let's talk about using data to inform responsive instruction, specifically through assessment for learning. This approach is all about collecting and analyzing student data to guide our teaching in real time. The goal is to identify what students know and what they still need to work on, so we can adjust our instruction accordingly. When we do this effectively, it makes learning more personalized and responsive. It's not just about testing. It's about ongoing formative assessment that helps us make informed decisions. By continuously gathering data, we can provide immediate feedback, support student growth, and ensure we're meeting each learner's needs. Ultimately, this keeps instruction flexible and student-centered, which is at the core of effective teaching. Let's talk about how we can build dynamic teams that adapt based on our current needs. By forming flexible groupings, we can better support individual learning styles and objectives. Choice boards are a great tool for allowing students to demonstrate their understanding in ways that suit them best, encouraging ownership of their learning. Learning menus offer a variety of activities and options, giving students the autonomy to choose what works best for their interests and readiness levels. To truly personalize instruction, we consider each student's learning profile, which includes their interests, readiness, and learning preferences. When we combine these elements, interest, readiness, and learning profile, we arrive at differentiated instruction, or DI. This approach ensures that our teaching is responsive and tailored, meeting the unique needs of every learner. Ultimately, DI helps us create a more engaging, effective learning environment that promotes success for all students. Let's talk about some tools and strategies that can really help students with executive function challenges, like graphic organizers and timers. These tools are designed to improve organization and time management, making tasks feel more manageable. For example, graphic organizers help students visualize information and structure their thoughts clearly. Timers assist with packing, which is especially helpful when working on tasks that have multiple steps. Now, one common challenge in planning and organization is losing track of multi-step tasks. Students might start a project with good intentions, but then get overwhelmed or forget what they've already completed. That's where chunking and visual checklists come in. They break tasks into smaller, manageable pieces and provide visual cues to track progress. Moving on to working memory, many students struggle to hold and manipulate information in their minds, especially during extended periods of learning. To support this, offering extended time and recorded sessions can make a big difference. These accommodations give students the chance to review material at their own pace and reduce the pressure of keeping everything in mind at once. Processing speed is another factor. Some students need more time to process information, which can affect their ability to keep up during lectures. Providing additional time or alternative ways to access content can help level the playing field. All of these strategies are evidence-based, meaning they're backed by research showing they improve learning outcomes. But it's important to remember that cognitive factors like these are diverse. Understanding cognitive diversity helps us recognize that every student has unique strengths and needs. Ultimately, by understanding these cognitive factors, we can better tailor our approaches, support all learners effectively, and help them succeed academically. Let's take a closer look at some common learning styles and abilities. First, there's kinesthetic learning, which involves hands-on activities and movement. People who prefer this style learn best by doing, touching, and actively engaging with the material. Then, we have auditory learners, who benefit most from discussion, listening to audio or verbal explanations. They often remember information better when they hear it. Visual learners, on the other hand, prefer diagrams, maps, charts, and other visual aids to grasp concepts effectively. It's important to recognize that many learners are multisensory, meaning they benefit from a combination of these styles. Understanding these different styles helps us tailor our teaching methods to reach each student more effectively. Connecting this to the overall theme, by acknowledging diverse learning abilities, we can create more inclusive and effective learning environments that support all types of learners. Let's talk about some key strategies for creating a supportive environment. First, trauma-informed practices emphasize the importance of predictable routines and de-escalation techniques. When we establish consistent daily patterns, it helps students feel safe and in control, which is essential for those who have experienced trauma. De-escalation, on the other hand, gives us tools to calmly address challenging behaviors without escalating the situation. Next, integrating social and emotional learning, or SEL, is crucial. It's about teaching students self-awareness and social skills so they understand their own emotions and how to interact positively with others. Building these skills helps create a more harmonious classroom and promotes emotional growth. Creating safe communities involves setting norms for inclusive participation. This means fostering an environment where everyone feels valued and respected, encouraging students to engage fully without fear of exclusion or judgment. Relationship building is the foundation of trust. By consistently showing respect and being dependable, we establish strong, trusting relationships with students. This trust makes it easier for students to open up, seek help, and engage meaningfully. All of these elements, trauma-informed practices, SEL, safe community norms, and relationship building, come together under the umbrella of effective and emotional support. When we focus on these areas, we create a nurturing environment that supports students' emotional well-being and learning. Let's talk about how we can make our spaces more accessible through various features. First, under digital accessibility, we have captions and screen reader support. These tools are essential for ensuring that everyone, including those with hearing impairments, can access and understand the content. Moving on to sensory accessibility, we see adjustable desks and sensory spaces. These are designed to help individuals who may need a bit of flexibility or a calming environment to feel comfortable and engaged. And of course, physical accessibility is fundamental. This involves ensuring that all physical spaces are accessible to everyone, whether through ramps, wide doorways, or accessible furniture. All of these elements, digital, sensory, and physical, are interconnected. The goal is to create an inclusive environment where access is seamless for all individuals, no matter their needs. This holistic approach aligns perfectly with our overall theme of accessibility, making sure no one is left out. Moving beyond superficial multiculturalism means really focusing on empowerment. It's not just about recognizing different cultures on a surface level, but actively validating students' identities and cultural experiences. When we do this, we create a classroom environment where students feel seen, respected, and valued for who they truly are. Leveraging cultural knowledge is also crucial, using what students bring from their backgrounds as a strength in the learning process. This approach helps make learning more relevant and engaging for them. Culturally responsive teaching is all about this mindset. It's about adapting our teaching strategies to honor and incorporate students' cultural contexts. When we do this, we're not just teaching content, we're empowering students to see their identities as assets and encouraging a more inclusive, dynamic learning environment. This ultimately ties back to our goal of fostering equity and genuine understanding in education. When we talk about authentic representation in education, what we really mean is creating a curriculum that is culturally relevant. This is so important because it helps students see themselves reflected in what they're learning. When students recognize their own cultures, histories, and experiences in the classroom content, it makes the learning experience more meaningful and engaging for them. It also fosters a sense of belonging and validation, which can boost confidence and motivation. By ensuring that the curriculum is inclusive and representative, we're not just teaching facts, they're stories and perspectives that resonate with students' identities. This approach aligns closely with our overall goal of equity in education, making sure every student feels seen and valued. So, when we develop these curricula, we're taking an active step toward building a more inclusive educational environment where every student can thrive. Let's talk about questioning power structures. This is really about encouraging us to critically examine who holds power and how they might influence the information we receive and the systems we operate within. Community-based research plays a crucial role here, as it involves working directly with communities to understand their perspectives and challenges, giving voice to those often marginalized. Analyzing media for bias is another key point, learning to recognize how media can shape perceptions by highlighting certain stories or framing issues in particular ways. This helps us develop a more critical eye and avoid taking information at face value. All of these strategies are about fostering critical consciousness through real-world investigation. It's about moving beyond passive consumption of information and actively questioning and exploring the world around us. This ties directly into the concept of problem-posing education, where learners are encouraged to question and challenge rather than just memorize facts. Critical pedagogy supports this approach, emphasizing dialogue, reflection, and social change. Together, these ideas form a powerful toolkit for empowering individuals and communities to understand and challenge unjust power dynamics, aligning perfectly with the overall theme of transformative education. Now, let's look at how we can identify growth areas in awareness. One effective way is through a cultural competence assessment, which helps us evaluate our current understanding and skills around cultural diversity. By analyzing daily classroom interactions, we can spot moments where we might unconsciously reinforce biases or miss opportunities to connect more inclusively. Reflective journaling is another powerful tool. By regularly writing about our experiences, we deepen our self-awareness and recognize patterns in our behavior. It's especially important to acknowledge unconscious assumptions we might hold, as these can influence our teaching without us realizing it. To address this, implicit bias training is essential. It helps us uncover hidden biases and learn strategies to mitigate their impact. The purpose of all these tools and strategies is ultimately to promote ongoing self-reflection. Teacher self-reflection allows us to continually assess and improve our practice, ensuring we're fostering an inclusive and equitable learning environment. So, by intentionally engaging with these assessment tools and reflection practices, we can grow in awareness and become more effective, culturally responsive educators. Now, let's take a closer look at the concept of diverse pathways. This slide highlights how designing inclusive units involves a layered approach, starting from the outcomes, moving through evidence, and finally focusing on learning. At the foundation, we have outcomes, which are the clear goals we want all students to achieve. Next, we look at evidence. How do we know students are meeting those goals? This involves flexible assessments that can adapt to different learners' needs. And at the top, learning, which emphasizes flexible instructional strategies that support diverse pathways to success. What's key here is the idea of using backward design to integrate universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, and culturally responsive teaching right from the start. By doing this, we create a coherent, inclusive curriculum that considers multiple ways students can demonstrate understanding and engage with the content. This layered approach ensures that our units are not only aligned with standards, but are also accessible and meaningful for every student. It's about building a flexible, inclusive learning environment where all students can thrive, connecting our overall goal of equitable education to practical, everyday teaching strategies. Now, let's talk about reviewing materials for bias and representation gaps. It's crucial that our instructional resources reflect the diversity of our students and ensure equity in learning. This is where equity audits come into play. They help us identify and address any unconscious biases or gaps in our content. Next, we have collaborative planning and reflecting on a single lesson. This involves teachers coming together to plan lessons collaboratively and then reflect on how those lessons went. It's a powerful way to share strategies and improve our practice collectively, always keeping an eye on inclusivity and student engagement. Then there's lesson study. This is where teachers visit each other's classrooms to observe and focus on inclusive practices. It's a great way to learn from one another and see how different approaches work in real time to support all learners. Moving on, peer observation is another valuable method. Teachers observe their colleagues' classes to gain insights and feedback on inclusive teaching strategies. It fosters a culture of continuous improvement and shared responsibility. Finally, we have the PLC protocol, which stands for Professional Learning Communities. These are structured spaces where teachers collaborate, analyze student work, and reflect on teaching practices. By working together in PLCs, we can develop more equitable and effective instructional strategies that benefit every student. All of these approaches tie back to our overall goal: creating an inclusive, equitable learning environment through continuous reflection and collaboration. Now, let's look at some of the key tools and platforms that are really making a difference in creating more inclusive learning environments. First, we have accessibility tools like auto-captioning and alt text generators. These are fantastic because they automatically provide captions for videos and descriptions for images, making content more accessible for students with hearing impairments or visual impairments. They help ensure everyone can access the information equally. Next, we have adaptive platforms. These are designed to personalize learning paths based on data. So, as students engage with the material, the system can adjust the difficulty level or suggest different resources tailored to their individual needs. It's about making learning more flexible and responsive. Finally, we have assistive technologies such as Read and Write, Voice Dream, and adaptive keyboards. These tools support students with diverse needs, whether they're using text-to-speech, speech-to-text, or specialized input devices, to interact with content more comfortably and effectively. All of these technologies are critical pieces of the broader goal of inclusion. They help break down barriers and ensure that all learners have equal opportunities to succeed. When we integrate these tools thoughtfully, we're moving closer to truly inclusive education for everyone. Now, moving on to some of the positive outcomes we've seen. We've noticed an improved sense of belonging and increased attendance among students, which is always a great indicator of engagement and connection. This is largely thanks to our CRT curriculum, which emphasizes higher mastery scores across diverse ability levels. It's important because it ensures we're meeting students where they are and helping them excel. To support this, we've implemented differentiated menus, allowing us to tailor instruction to individual needs, and we've seen a 30% increase in student engagement metrics. That's a significant jump, showing that students are more actively involved in their learning. Additionally, we've integrated Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, which makes learning more accessible and flexible for all students, further promoting inclusion. All these strategies contribute directly to better student outcomes, which is our ultimate goal. And to illustrate this in action, we have a case study on inclusive success, demonstrating how these approaches truly make a difference in real classroom settings. Let's end on a powerful note by focusing on empowering every student to achieve their full potential. This means believing in their abilities and providing the support they need to succeed. A lifelong commitment to continuous growth in equity and justice is essential. It's about constantly reflecting and improving our practices to ensure fairness and inclusion for all students, not just today, but for the future. We also recognize the importance of being asset-based, leveraging our differences as strengths. Every student brings unique experiences and perspectives that enrich our learning environment and help us grow stronger as a community. This ties into the moral imperative that inclusion is a right, not a privilege. Everyone deserves access, respect, and the opportunity to thrive, and it's our responsibility to make that a reality. In conclusion, this is about transforming education itself, creating a more equitable, inclusive, and empowering system where every student can truly succeed. This is the heart of our mission and the future we're working toward together.